the White House, stop at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and Donald Trump will not, in fact, be able to escape.
Yeah, because it's entirely triggered by Donald Trump's ridiculous, like, tariffs regime that he is implementing. It's not like this was, you know, I don't know, the previous administration's actions, unless the argument is that, like, Joe Biden did mind control or something. Anyway, we're moving on from freaking...
Let's take a look.
Pete Hegseth. Let's take a look at President Trump being on a planet all by himself. Harry Enton on market fears. Let's run the number. Changes, market panic, everything's computer. Let's take a look.
At stock futures, they are pointed up at the moment. Higher as investors are looking to rebound after a brutal day yesterday. A day where President Trump showed that he is refusing to give up on his attacks against the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Uncertainty around the president's trade war, what he's saying about Powell, and the ripple effects from all of it continue.
Part of me feels a little sad that he's just like, the money molestation must be put an end to, you know? Money molestation must stop. The molestation of money must stop, said Jamie Dimon. And Trump said, yes, master. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I mean, it's not all stopped yet, but Japan says the MAGA hat is non-political. Japanese minister says no political message behind the MAGA cap photo. Oh my God. My God. HasanAbi head? HasanAbi head? That's my goat, dude. Hey, confirmed. That's right. That's right. He's a hat that represents centrism. That's, thank God. Yeah, based. I know Asmongold is not streaming apparently for the week, so if you guys were, you know, looking for some nuanced apolitical takes, don't worry. I got it for you. Are you ready? Yeah, based. Yeah, of course. Of course Trump is going to do that. Everybody likes him. Everybody thinks he's the best. Yeah. Yeah. Well. Little mini F. Look at that. Twitch. USAID. Coming after apolitical, nuanced streamers. Once again, coming after nuanced, apolitical, centrist streamers. I'm just doing common sense. Not so common. Yeah. Fuck around and find out. Right, chat? Fuck around and find out. Yeah. USAID and DEI. It's over. They took a lot from us. Titties and video games. They took that from us. Yeah. And now we're bringing titties back. Oh, shit. What happened to Hasan? Hasmongold, baby. Based apolitical guy.
Used to weigh on America.
Yeah, people think I'm joking when I do the I think that video game takes that are so f***ing insane where you're like, no, he possibly hadn't done that here.
Pretty much every single circumstance. Always a bad idea to make characters that are not conventionally attractive. Because this is, again, this is a shooter game. And shooter games are going to be primarily played by men. So if you're making a shooter game that's primarily made for men, then you should make sure that all of the female characters in the game are f***able. And I know this might sound crazy to say, but I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, say it. He's so brave. Yeah, based.
That's what you should do.
Yeah, that's why I want Shepard, Commander Shepard, to look like the kind of guy whose penis I'd suck. Yeah, that's right. I want him to be hot. Don't give me an unfuckable male character. All right? I want to suck and fuck all the characters. I'm a gooner. That's right. Yeah, based.
That's what you should do, because that's what people want to do. That's what girls will cosplay. Girls don't want to cosplay ugly, weird-looking, androgynous, creepy characters. And all of that, like, think about how much advertising Marvel Rivals gets.
Yeah, men play the game because they're playing the game to shoot. Women, they want to cosplay. Yeah, in between, making sandwiches. Based.
It's because of how many girls try to cosplay the characters. I think that...
Yeah, that's right. Tell girls some more about what they want. Yeah, I'm the guy. Look at me. I know what women want. All right. Yeah. Wholeflation. I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I'm sorry. Asmongold always puts a smile on my face. I just when I see his takes, it's just fun. It's a fun little journey that we went on here. Okay, take a shot every time he says, "Yeah, I'm based." Yeah, it's just common sense. Yeah, not so common. Unique users detected 3,100. Mr. Destructoid, only 7% of viewers. Yeah, I only have 30. Wait, did you actually reduce the number by 10? Is that what happened? Because it says right here, the logged on user count, also known as the chatter count on Chatterino, is 29,700. Blah, blah, blah. All right, let's get back to Holy Toledo.
Americans across the country, and that's something that CNN's Harry Anton is taking a look at for us this morning. The stock market was down in a big way yesterday. How poorly has the stock market done since Trump took office?
Yeah, you know, sometimes we look at the day-to-day, and I feel like we can get lost. So let's take a look over the whole stretch of the Trump presidency as we approach day 100. The S&P has dropped the most under Trump for any president at this point in their presidency since the S&P 500 was in fact created back in 1957. And indeed, it is not anywhere close, folks. It's not anywhere close. Under Trump, it's dropped, get this, 14%. The next closest one was George W. Bush back in 2001, a drop of just half that at 7%. No other elected president at this point in their presidency saw a drop of 5% or more. So Donald Trump is on a planet all by himself, a planet you do not want to be on, the American people don't want to be on, in terms of the drop in the S&P 500 approaching 15% already. Presidency. No bueno.
Yeah, this is base too. Yeah, money. Trump won on making video game titties big. He ran on Oblivion Remaster. Guess what? Shadow dropped Oblivion Remaster. Based. Who cares about anything else? Let it burn. It builds character. I'll grind way harder. Take all of it away. I'll grind harder, chat. Well.
So all of this and the ripple effects from the trade war have a lot of people talking, of course, about a recession coming. Some even saying that we're already in a recession. Where are the numbers on that?
Yeah, okay. So, of course, this is the whole question, right? Is what happens on the New York Stock Exchange, what happens in the NASDAQ, what happens in the S&P 500, stay there, or does it then cascade across the economy? And at this particular point, there's a decent chance that it will cascade across the economy. Chance of a recession. You see, I have 4 different little metrics we can look at. JP Morgan, 60%. Polymarket, 57%. Reuters, 45%. Goldman Sachs, 45%. That's a bunch of numbers on your screen, but they're all basically telling the same exact story. That is, on either side of 50%, there's basically a 50-50 chance of a recession at this point. And that is way up from where we were at the beginning of the Trump presidency, when the numbers simply put weren't anywhere near this. The stock market is a reflection of the economic state we're in. The chance of a recession is...
Why is there a poly-market ticker on this, dude? What is going on at this point? How has this become a part of, like, normal political discourse? Like, that's on CNN, dude. God damn, we are such a stupid country. I'm sorry, dude. Holy... I know I'm supposed to be saying it's based, but, like... Every day I find out something new.
Another reflection of the state of the economy that we are in. The bottom line is that Trump's tariff wars have taken what was a pretty gosh darn good economy and turned into a very uncertain economy, one in which the stock market has fallen and one in which the chance of a recession has gone up considerably, Kate Baldwin.
If there is a recession, how much blame is Donald Trump likely to face?
Okay, so this is the whole thing. Is it, am I going to blame the last guy and I'm trying to fix the economy? Or is it we're going to blame this guy, Donald Trump, and the buck actually stops there? This is what the American folks say. If Donald Trump believes that he can somehow escape blame if there is, in fact, a recession, I'm here for a reality check. He will simply put not be able to do so. Blame Trump if there's a recession in the next 12 months. Look at this. A lot or quite a bit. That's the majority winner right there at 52%. A little or not at all, perhaps a little bit high, some might say, at 32%. But still here, the clear majority of Americans say that if, in fact, there is a recession in the next 12 months, which at this point looks about 50-50, the majority of the American public says that the buck will stop at the White House, stop at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and Donald Trump will not, in fact, be able to escape.
Yeah, because it's entirely triggered by Donald Trump's ridiculous, like, tariffs regime that he is implementing. It's not like this was, you know, I don't know, the previous administration's actions, unless the argument is that, like, Joe Biden did mind control or something. Joe Biden did mind control to Donald Trump to make him do the tariff stuff. Yeah, never forget the HasanAbi 30% rule.
Blame if there is, in fact, a recession.
Harry Anton, thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Berman.
All right, with us now is Canadian businessman, CNBC. He's also the chairman of O'Leary Ventures. Kevin, great to see you this morning. You just saw that stat right there, that more than half of Americans would blame Trump if there is a recession. I know you're sitting in Canada this morning. Would you blame Trump if there were a recession?
Well, let me just say that we've been talking about recession now for 4 years in a row, you may recall. Forecasters of recessions have been wrong for 4 years straight. So probabilities of 32 to 55%, that's interesting, but we are not in a recession right now. It really depends on how long these tariff wars go on for. I mean, it's widely assumed right now that the euro.
Wait, last week, this fucking bald piece of shit was talking about how we need to do 10,000% tariffs on China. He said, and I quote, "We must crush the Chinese workers' heads against the wall." He said we need to squeeze Chinese workers' heads against the wall. That's what he said. How come now he's like, oh, well, you know, the tariffs regime is, you know, creating an environment of instability. I'm not even joking. That fucking douchebag literally said that. So what happened? He said Donald Trump needs to absolutely eviscerate China, decouple China entirely from global trade. Did he just realize that his portfolio relies heavily on fucking Chinese manufacturing?
European bloc, the British, Swiss, Canadian, and Mexican deals will get resolved in relatively short order. The giant question mark, and certainly this is on Powell's mind when he refuses to drop rates, is how long will the China situation last? Because that one looks far more complicated. It's not just trade and tariffs. It's
Wait, what?
IP theft and access to markets and WTO issues. There's a lot on the table with China. And so I would argue right now that people that count out the American economy are constantly wrong all the time. It's the largest.
Kevin, you said it was simple last week. Kev, what are you saying? This is a totally different message than last week, big dog. Wait, what? I'm so shocked. He said it wasn't complicated last week. Why is he saying it's complicated this week? He said it's not complicated. China will back down with pressure. We have a very important market to enter here, and that the art of the deal is going to work all the way. And if he verbatim said, if I do say so myself, we should make the tariffs 400%. Huh.
Economy on Earth represents, 26% of the world's GDP and almost 40% of all consumables. So it's a difficult, tricky situation, I agree. But I'm an investor. I have to make these decisions every day, and I'm not investing for a recession right now. I'd be pulling my horns in, and I want to remind you, the market's correct 20% all the time. Almost every 18 months that happens. And so why correct is different every time. This is because of scares on tariffs. But this is nothing new for the S&P 500. And frankly, it's often, and has been for over 100 years, a buying opportunity. The American economy generates 8 to 10% returns over the long run. And now you're getting to buy at a 17, 18 PE versus 23 just 4 months ago. It's a value deal.
I would say yes, there are corrections all the time. This is a little different, right? I mean, the Dow, the worst April since the Great Depression, the S&P, the same thing. There's a lot of focus on the stock market. The Wall Street Journal, which put out that headline today that got a lot of information, also notes it's not just stocks, right? The Journal writes, counterweights that usually strengthen when stocks fall, such as government bonds and the U.S. dollar, also under pressure. Yields on 10-year U.S. Treasuries, a key benchmark, have increased 0.16% in April. The ICE U.S. dollar index slips more than 1% Monday to its lowest level in 3 years. With other defensive plays falling short, investors have piled into one of the oldest hedges there is, gold. An all-time high for gold. So, look, the markets in general, not just stocks, are saying we're not so sure about the U.S. right now.
No, you're right. There's a lot of volatility, and that's what you get when you take these kinds of actions. No administration has ever taken on 60 trade negotiations simultaneously, let alone China on top of that. The job owning with the Fed that Trump is doing.
Yeah, maybe it's not a good idea to do that for literally no reason. Don't you think? Yeah, no one has been dumb enough to just break global trade with no discernible mechanism to rebuild manufacturing, mind you, which makes it even funnier. Like, it's awesome. It's so funny. I'm sorry. It's just like these things are completely outside of our control. So what do you do but laugh? I hope the fear of God was put in this asshole's heart, okay? Over the past couple of weeks. He's been running around talking about how brave, bold, and beautiful Trump is for these decisions. And now, seemingly, his attitude has shifted.
Every administration does. There's always the Fed is at loggerhead with the executive. The executive always wants interest rates down. The Fed has to worry about inflation. And really what Powell is saying, I don't know how long China's going on for, and that could be inflationary if it lasts months and months, so I'm not going to drop rates.
Go into a
so all of this
trade war.
Look, it's really ugly. This president won the election based on
squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now. The world's GDP. America is the #1 economy on earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well, hold on a second, Kevin. Well, I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
It's short-lived. There will be
what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, cheese on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
What do you think?
You know, here's the thing, though. This is the perfect example of, I understand how it would benefit you, but that's not what the American people.
Stuff is, you know, we've seen this movie before, and the volatility index is very high, the VIX. But that's because of the nature of this administration. And I've always said this about Trump. You know, I'm not advocating for Trump. I'm still for politicians. I would like to see the China issue resolved once and for all. After 20 years, and as an individual who invests, and I want to do business in China, I've invested there, and I've said this multiple.
Wow, he's no longer advocating for Trump, guys. Wait, he said he wanted to put money on a bet. If Donald Trump increased theirs to 400%, Xi would be on a jet tomorrow. So strange. Look at the tonal shift. Well, you know, time passes, opinions turn, opinions change. You start recognizing the writing on the wall. Who knows?
Multiple times in the last 6 weeks. I'm an example of someone who's really been screwed by the Chinese in IP theft. And I've kind of done with it. So I'm very happy that some administration, this one particularly, is taking them on to resolve this problem once and for all. And she needs the U.S. and the U.S. needs me. So let's get this thing resolved. I'm okay with the volatility.
The China thing is a really interesting issue. I'm not going to give you the long quote. We have an Atlantic article here, but the Atlantic wrote last week, basically, taking on China is a good idea, and there might be a chance to win here, but Trump is doing it, says the Atlantic, entirely the wrong way, because the one thing you want if you're going to take on China right now, literally the #1 thing is friends. So what's happened here is the president is also going after all the rest of the world who you will need. And you've taken away the one thing that gives you the biggest advantage over China.
You're making a good point. If you could get a union, which I think will happen pretty quickly. If you think about just the EU, Britain, Switzerland, Canada, and Mexico, that's about 72% of all the trade with the U.S. So if you get that resolved, it works. The one thing I would say that I've noticed as I do business all around the world, in the Middle East and in Europe, 50% of the people in the world have Trump derangement syndrome. And they still have a really hard time understanding why he's back in the White House. And I say to them, listen, it doesn't matter. He's in the White House. We have to deal with the policy, not Trump, the policy. Let's forget about the fact that he's in the White House. There's nothing you can do about it. He was elected with a majority. Let's get over the derangement syndrome. Let's focus on the policy and get stuff done. Because I've got to tell you, there's a lot of people that go out of their minds just the fact that he's back in there. And I realize it. It is what it is, but I've got to deal with it too. I mean, I just have to deal with policy. And I think you're right. If he gets this policy right and circles the wagons with...
It's just crazy because you definitely do advocate for Trump. So why are you saying you don't advocate for Trump now? Oh, why are the markets behaving the way there's so much volatility? Why is the VIX the hottest ticker on the New York Stock Exchange? What's the question there? Why is all this happening? Oh, it's just Trump derangement syndrome. No, asshole. It's because they look at how deranged Trump is and go, well, this doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me. Can you explain IP theft in China? Yeah, IP theft is cope that capital owners fucking claim is a horribly uncompetitive business practice implemented by China that they absolutely agreed to. That's it. Initially, they did not think that China would be able to become a competitive manufacturing hub that could have any sort of like that. It would have any sort of foothold or even become a leader in key sectors. So I don't even know what IP he's talking about because I don't know what kind of companies he has like done manufacturing in China for. I find it really funny. Maybe it's like some Shark Tank shit. Can you imagine? China, they stole the ShamWow. They stole this small business that I bought on Shark Tank that is a different version of Poppers. Yeah, Scrub Daddy. As far as IP theft goes, this was a part of the deal. That's all it is. It's a part of the deal. You want manufacturing China. China gets access to your technology. That's it. That's it. So everybody that's now complaining about that, Kevin O'Leary included, knew that that was the deal and still fucking went along with it because they wanted cheap manufacturing.
The Europeans, the Mexicans and the Canadians, that's a more powerful charge against China. I totally agree.
We will see what happens there and if deals that are struck are convincing. Kevin O'Leary, great to talk to you this morning. We'll speak to you again soon.
Today, the Dow is seeing a pretty big surge. It's up roughly 2.5 percentage points. The Dow jump happening after Bloomberg
this is a great
reported
example. This is a great example. Look, where is it? My friend came home from China with a phone that operated like they just cut and paste iOS into the phone and made a few changes, so there's some truth to the IP theft. Okay. Do you know Tim Cook's opinion on manufacturing in China? Tim Cook, who famously said, even if American manufacturing was competitive rate-wise to Chinese manufacturing, as in Chinese wages improved to such a degree that they were literally the same, I would still manufacture my equipment in China because of the precision manufacturing necessary and the technical skills necessary to be able to make a fucking iPhone would require multiple decades for the American labor force to even come to a competitive, to become a competitive labor force when it comes to precise manufacturing. China has a far superior manufacturing infrastructure. China has a far more educated labor force. So do you think Tim Pool is complaining about the fucking IP theft? Do you think Tim Pool doesn't know that China engages in IP theft when he says stuff like that? Do you think you know something about IP theft in China that fucking Tim Cook doesn't know? Did I say Tim Pool? I'm sorry. Do you think the man with a vested interest in protecting his IP, the man who has a fiduciary responsibility to constantly fucking improve profit margins, is oblivious to the IP theft that China is engaging in, and therefore that's the reason why he continues manufacturing shit in China? But you, random chatter, who has no fucking purchasing power and are simply a consumer, are running around defending, Apple's, defending a position that the fucking CEO of Apple does not take. Chatter doesn't just own a factory.
There's a confusion about
Chowder doesn't just own a factory, he owns the Apple factory.
China. And let me at least give you my opinion. The popular conception is that companies come to China because of low labor costs. I'm not sure what part of China they go to, but the truth is China stopped being the low labor cost country many years ago. The reason is because of the skill, the quantity of skill in one location and the type of skill it is. Like the products we do require really, and the precision that you have to have in tooling and working with the materials that we do are state of the art. And the tooling skill is very deep here. You know, in the US, you could have a meeting of tooling engineers and I'm not sure we could fill the room. In China, you could fill multiple football fields. It's that vocational expertise is very deep, very, very deep here.
Interesting. It's just strange. He didn't mention the IP theft that you as a consumer are worried about, by the way. I don't know. I don't understand it. What does that chatter know? Because you as a consumer are trying to outflank Tim fucking Apple over here. Okay? And it's really interesting because as a consumer, you know what IP theft looks like to you? Generic drugs versus brand drugs. That's it. That's all this is for you. From the consumer standpoint, when you say China's stealing our IP, brother, what you actually mean is, I want to pay more. Why the fuck do you care about IP theft? You are just a fucking piglet, dude. You just consume, and so do I. We are both piglets, okay? We're in it together. Someone, somewhere along the line, basically made you think that the profit incentives of a company that volunteered their IP to China so that they could initially get access to a cheap manufacturing hub was a decent bargain. And multiple decades later, they still fucking manufacture there. Do you think Tim Apple doesn't know that China does IP theft? No, he knows. He doesn't give a shit. That's it. So why are you, as a consumer, outflanking the fucking CEO?
That Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told investors behind closed doors that he expects the United States trade war with China to de-escalate. Joining us now is Nick Timmeros. He's a national economics correspondent at the Wall Street Journal. Nick, thanks so much for being with us. I have to ask you about those comments from the Treasury Secretary. Do you have any idea? Our reporting indicates that the administration reached out to Beijing and said that President Xi should request a call with Trump. Our understanding is that call has not yet come.
Well, and Bessent didn't say that the U.S. is talking to China. He simply, according to what's been reported, repeated comments he made publicly last week. These tariffs on China are so high that they are a tax that's not going to be paid. They're going to destroy demand, and we can't maintain it for that long. So I think that's what you see markets reacting to right now.
I have to ask you about the Dow being headed, despite today's historic gains, for the worst April since the Great Depression. I mean, there's a lot of factors here. There's China. There are pending deals with essentially almost every nation on earth. And then there's Trump's attacks on Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Which do you see as weighing most heavily on Wall Street right now?
Well, I think it starts and ends with the trade war. And the reason for that is if you go back to the April 2nd Liberation Day announcements, the optimism on Wall Street was that everybody was going to know now what the rules of the road were going to be for trade. If you're a business, you are not going to put in a multi-billion-dollar investment in the United States if you don't know what your cost of goods are going to be. And we still don't have that clarity. So the tariffs on China, today we have the Treasury Secretary saying they'll come down. We still have this 90-day pause on the other tariffs with 60 other countries. People don't know what the future is going to look like, and so that freezes up activity.
Some of that uncertainty leads to gold being at an all-time high and the dollar weakening as well. Do you think the Treasury Secretary, the Commerce Secretary are seeing those as red flags and advising the president that some kind of off-ramp is needed?
They have to be concerned here. If you go back and look at what Secretary Bessent said a couple of months ago, he said the administration was not going to talk about the Fed. They were going to focus on the 10-year Treasury yield. And that's important because your mortgage rate, your auto loan rate, it depends on those longer-term interest rates. But if you look at the 10-year Treasury rate, it is up over the past few weeks. So that measure of success is going in the wrong way for the administration, and I think it has to concern senior economic policymakers.
You wrote in the Journal that Trump is essentially laying the ground to blame Fed Chair Jerome Powell for any kind of economic weakening. What happens if Powell gets fired? And what happens if he says, all right, let's lower interest rates? Would that solve some of this problem?
Lowering interest rates here isn't going to deal with not knowing what your cost of goods are going to be, having to pay a large tariff on a freight container that's getting off the boat in Long Beach, California. So it's not clear what lower interest rates do here. If the president were to try to sack the Fed chair, I think you'd see a huge legal fight, and the market would have a verdict probably before the Supreme Court could get together. And you've been seeing that in the markets in the last couple of days, Boris.
We've seen major announcements from a number of U.S. companies talking about either temporarily or possibly permanently installing layoffs and laying people off. I wonder how you think the tariffs are impacting the jobs market.
Well, you don't see a lot of layoff announcements yet. Today you had the CEO of Verizon saying, we are going to pass these costs on to consumers. And so I think that's the big question right now is, which do you see first? Do you see prices go up, or do you see companies say, you know what, we're going to have to let people go because this is eating into our margins, this is going to hit our bottom line?
Nick Timmerose of the Wall Street Journal, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us. Appreciate it.
Today, there is a rebound on Wall Street. The markets are up nearly 1,000 points, recovering somewhat after another brutal sell-off to start the week. But it is not all good news for the economy. This morning, another flash.
Here, what Tim Cook, Google, and Zuckerberg have to say about China stealing U.S. technology?
And I have a yes or no answer. Do you believe that the Chinese government steals technology from U.S. companies? Start with Mr. Cook.
I don't know of specific cases where we have been stolen from by the government.
So you don't believe that the Chinese government's stealing technology from U.S. companies, or you're just saying that not from yours?
I'm saying I know of no case on ours where it occurred, which is I can only speak to firsthand knowledge.
Mr. Pichai, do you believe that the Chinese government steals technology from United States companies?
Apple actually relies on precise manufacturing in China. Facebook is not allowed to compete in China. Facebook is not allowed to enter the Chinese marketplace, and neither is Google. I don't know what they end up saying here, but that's something you need to remember.
Congressman, I have no first-hand knowledge of any information stolen from Google in this regard.
Mr. Zuckerberg?
Congressman, I think it's well documented that the Chinese government steals technology from American companies.
Yeah, thank you.
Depending on your level of involvement or level of interest in ever being able to enter the Chinese marketplace, your answer will differ.
You. Mr. Bezos? You're on mute.
Mr. Bezos, I believe you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I have heard many reports of that, and I haven't seen it personally, but I've heard many reports of it.
So of all the different products that Amazon carries, you haven't seen that in any of the companies that sell products on Amazon or your company yourself?
Oh, well, certainly there are knockoff products. If that.
Jeff Bezos talking about knockoff products is so funny because his entire business model relies on stealing other people's IP and then utilizing the horizontally and vertically integrated supply chain model that he has to drive costs down so much and make the infinitely cheaper alternative. Like Jeff Bezos literally does the thing that the American government says China is doing. The difference, of course, is that a small business has no way of competing against Jeff Bezos' prices, whereas America has a way to compete against Chinese subsidies. We could just also fucking have a command economy. But we will never do that because that would be anti-capitalist, and therefore we can't do that.
That's what you mean. And there are counterfeit products and all of that. But the Chinese, if the answer is the Chinese government stealing technology, that's the thing I've read reports of but don't have personal experience with.
Before I call on the next witness, I want to recognize Mr. Pichai, who I think wants to make a correction for the hearing.
The only correction, thanks, Mr. Chairman. There was a question earlier about information with respect to China. I just wanted to acknowledge on record that I recalled in 2009, we had a well-publicized cyber attack originating there, which did exfiltrate some code from there. I just wanted to correct that on record.
Thank you, Mr. Pichai. The record will still reflect. I recognize the gentlelady from Pennsylvania for 5 minutes.
I'll watch when he goes live. I know he's meeting with Khalil. What is Kaya up to? Mackie. Apple doesn't experience IP theft because they literally give them permission to use various parts of their tech. That is the point. Everyone that manufactures in China is giving them permission to use their fucking technology. Everybody understands that that is the reality, but then people still will turn around and yell and cry and piss and shit in their fucking diapers. Here's a very easy solution to the Chinese IP theft argument, which the American government knows, as a matter of fact. It's called don't manufacture there. Make it illegal to manufacture there. There's plenty of fucking products like microchips and microchip machines, like the machines that make microchips, like the technology in and of itself is directly stopped by the American government to move to China.
Flashing red warning light. The International Monetary Fund threw out its global economic predictions from before President Trump launched his global trade war. The new forecast, a slowing global economy and worldwide trouble with inflation, all because of the president's tariffs. And investors are obviously spooked. The bond market is down and the dollar is doing worse than it has in years. Look at this Wall Street Journal headline. It put the stock market's recent drop in context. The Dow headed for worst April since 1932 as investors send no confidence signal. My smart reporters are back. Leanne?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to, I mean, yes, it's very good news that the stock market is back up, but one day does not a recovery make, and all of these other warning signs are very serious.
Yeah, and part of the challenge and maybe the problem is that I'm hearing from sources is all of this was self-inflicted as well. And that is what is so frustrating to members of Congress, to people, to Wall Street, that this didn't have to happen this way. You know, Trump ran on the economy. He's barely talking about the economy now because it's obviously a weakness for him. He's talking instead about deportation and immigration and suing or taking colleges' funding away. And so it's a distraction to take away what is really happening to people's pocketbooks and people's expenses.
But President Biden learned very well before that you can talk about other things, you can focus on other things, but if people feel the way they feel, that is a reality that can't be changed. You and your colleagues at the National Review wrote something that I want to read to our viewers, an editorial this morning, and what you write is, it's called Trump's War on the Fed, which is very much related to the trade war. Maybe you think Trump's trade policy has merit or the Federal Reserve needs to be brought more firmly under the president's control. That's a separate question from how real investors with real money in the real world are really reacting to Trump's decisions. Their verdict is clear. They don't like it.
That's right. I don't think that investors really around the world are looking at the conduct of U.S. trade policy and how chaotic and volatile it's been and saying we need more of that for U.S. monetary policy too. But obviously Trump wants to bring everything within his orbit, and he wants to be able to control everything with his whim. Markets don't like that. Markets want predictability. They want certainty. And that's the one thing that he is least eager to provide.
Yeah, and of course, what you reference here with the Federal Reserve is the idea that a big part of why there was such a big market sell-off yesterday is because the president woke up and sent off a social media post that was really, really scathing against the Federal Reserve chair.
Part of me wanted to see how much harder he could molest the money. Like, I really thought that he had it in him. I wanted to see it. Don't act like you didn't either. Like, part of you, you're like, this isn't to like belittle the economic downsides, obviously.
Independent. Right. It's supposed to be an
It's not like he's done yet, but I'm saying he has greatly diminished his molestation capabilities. I mean, he straight up went from total molestation to like maybe a little bit of light diddling of the money virtually over the course of like a week. Not to say that he's not like going to continue. He will. I just wanted to see how far he could take it.
Independent institution, but it seems like with the economic frustration that is forecast at this point, that the president is sort of setting the groundwork to blame the Fed, you know, as people are frustrated if consumer prices go up. And we've seen that in the past as well, him saying, well, look, can you bring interest? This would be a good time to bring interest rates down. Well, we also know that that's a factor in rising inflation as well. So that interest rates are a tool to keep inflation down as well. So this is part of the playbook of the president when facing criticism on a specific issue, including something as crucial to his electoral win, as you noted, like the economy, finding someone to blame.
Yeah.
It seems like we know who that person is going to be here.
Except that Jerome Powell wasn't elected.
Sure.
He was appointed, by the way, by Donald Trump in the first term. And President Trump now says, well, I think it was really immigration that got me elected. If you look at every exit poll, it was the economy, that drove it. And look where he is right now, Leanne. This is a question from a CNBC poll that came out a couple of days ago. On the economy, his disapproval is 55%. He's pretty underwater there. Inflation, very underwater, 60% disapproval. And then federal government spending is a little bit more even, but he still has a majority of people not happy. I will say that he's above water on the issue of immigration, which is probably why he continues to talk about that, which is exactly the point you were making.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, I mean, the fact that he's so...
The irony is that if the Democrats keep hitting him on immigration, his immigration numbers are getting lower and lower too. Yeah, there it is. Oh my God. Right on. Right as I said this. Look, thank you, chatter. Thank you. B-Ball Hoops 365. I also like B-Ball Hooping 365. New Reuters poll finds Trump is no longer in positive territory, even on immigration. Wow. Dude, I'm going to be honest. I'm not a particularly smart guy, okay? I'm not. You don't have to be. You don't have to be a fucking brilliant guy to be able to predict the future. I'm saying super basic shit. I'm saying super basic fucking shit, dude. If Democrats make a big fuss over the depravity of the Trump administration's cruel and unusual white nativist immigration agenda, then the media will cover it more. And when the media will cover it more, people will be more fucking aware of what's going on. And they'll go, oh my God. Yeah, I thought he was like deporting rapists. Why is he deporting random fucking gay hairstylist whose name is Andre because he had a mom and dad tattoo? People are stupid. They're fucking malleable. They are easy to persuade. They are easy to dupe. And it turns out when the Democrats actually launch even the beginning phases of a counter messaging campaign on the issue of immigration, oh my God, lo and behold, the fucking polls change. How could this have happened? Burgles, thank you for the 100 gifted subs. See, I can't pre-watch. I didn't know that Burgles was going to gift 100 gifted subs. I didn't know anyone was going to gift any subs, as a matter of fact. I can't see the future. You're maybe not a STEM genius, but your political instincts are on point. It's not even political instincts. I'm telling you right now, it is super fucking basic shit. It's super basic shit. It's just having a decent understanding of history and having a decent understanding of what, like, you know, the common American voter looks like and thinks like. Thank you, Dino Respesh, for the 5 gifted subs. I don't even think it's my poli-sci degree that's working here. There are plenty of people who have not only gotten an undergrad like myself, but as a matter of fact, they've maybe studied a little too much. And that's precisely why I don't fucking understand it. My point is, all of this stuff happens because, like, I think in dialectical ways, okay? It is dialectical thinking. I understand that if there's always a push and pull, for example, if there's only push in one direction when it comes to immigration and no pull whatsoever, then yeah, of course people are going to reflect this broader cultural shift. They're going to look at this and go, okay, well, I guess, yeah, immigrants are rapists, bloodthirsty murderers, and parasitic or whatever the fuck, because no one else is saying the opposite on the other side. You would be a great actuary. It's like basically predicting the future, but with math. I would not, because I haven't done any math in years, and I hated it, even though I was decent at it in comparison to the average American. Anyway, my point is, you can be a common sense thinker and be able to comprehend what has happened thus far and potentially talk about what will happen in the future. Okay, they failed in this live stream, it seems. This is why people like Senator Markey need me on their side. If I knew that Ed Markey was going to the detention facility, I would have gone with him, and I would have live streamed the whole thing. And that is for all the staffers that are in this chat. And I know a lot of you motherfuckers are in here right now. Let your senators know. I will go with them. If anyone wants to go to Louisiana, I will fly out on my own, obviously. I will fucking stream your senator. I will talk to your senator. I will do it all, okay? I've said it, or I've tweeted about this earlier today. I will give all full-blown support. I am not a man who is capable of creating super PACs and funding people's campaigns like that. But I do have one thing. I have a community of like-minded thinkers who are very progressive, who will go out and will door knock, who will go out and will show support to Democratic Party politicians. I also have a decent understanding of what makes the news. So I will use that to your advantage. I will use that to your advantage if you do the right thing. Okay? I will fucking fly out to Louisiana. If you want me to fucking stream it, I will do it. Senator Ed Markey, I would have done that. Okay? Yeah, I said, I will defend an extended platform to any politician who speaks out against the unjustifiable detainment of pro-Palestinian student activists, as will many Americans. My point was, if someone can go to fucking El Salvador and make waves like this, then they can absolutely go to Louisiana. That's it.